Welcome everybody, it's Peter Downs here from the Inclusion Club. It's a great pleasure today to introduce you to Inclusion WA and their CEO Paul Fleay and Jessica Kain. I've been wanting to track down Inclusion WA for some time to quiz them about the work that they do and more specifically about a project called Youth Connect. Now it's impossible in this short time frame for this video to do justice to the work of Inclusion WA. So I do urge you to look at their website and take a look at the great work that they do over in Perth. But my first question to Paul in this interview was really simply to describe what the work of Inclusion WA is. So my first question to Paul is, what do you do?
Thanks, Peter. Well, Inclusion WA do two things really. For about 20 years we've focused on working directly with individuals to help them connect into the mainstream community. So we do that for all ages, and as you said, we'll focus on Youth Connect in a moment. But we also focus on helping the community and supporting the community as well, so that we are just expecting that the community will turn up and be able to deal with and assist people we bring along. So we work with both sides, the community and individuals, and bring them together.
Yeah, how long have you been around, Paul? Quite a while.
Well, we were first set up back in the late 1980s as a pilot project, actually, because there were some quite visionary folk who realised that people with disabilities had more to offer the community, and the community had more to offer people with disabilities. So we started up working in that very much one-to-one way, helping people connect into the mainstream community, and progressively from that it was so successful that a whole organisation grew out of that. And over the last probably 20 years, our focus has primarily been connecting people into their community through sport and recreation. That's not entirely how we work, but that's one of the main vehicles that we use.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of learning over that period of time, and that's an important part of what you do these days, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we're also involved in some research through Curtin University here in Western Australia at the moment to further our knowledge and understanding around basically the community and how we continue to support the community, because I think there is that element of expectation that the community, whatever shape that takes, whether it's a sporting club or a recreation group or an art group or whoever, anyone in the community, will automatically know how to include people. Yeah. But in actual fact, if we're asking people to do that, we need to support all of the community on that journey as well. So we're doing some research at the moment to really understand how communities function and what support the community actually needs.
Great. Okay. We look forward to seeing that. Youth Connect program. Paul, can you give us a quick intro into Youth Connect, and I'll ask Jessica some of the detail around that particular program, because I think that would be really interesting for Inclusion Club people to have a look at.
Sure. What we were finding, we'd worked with people who were 18 and over for all of those 20 years. What we were finding was that the older people were the more complex it is in helping people connect into mainstream groups, because A, there's a greater skill gap, and secondly, in many cases, there are cliques and niches within groups that are harder to break into the older you get. So we always felt like the earlier we started in people's lives and helping them on that journey, the more success we would have. So we pitched to a local funding body to actually trial a pilot project, which is called Youth Connect, basically working with 12 to 17-year-olds, so teenagers essentially, to go on that same journey, work one-to-one with them, really understand what they want to do, what they want out of their lives, and how socially connected they want to get in what forum, and walk them through that journey and connect them into mainstream groups with their peers and with age-appropriate and valued roles and those types of things.
Yeah, what kind of, Jessica, what kind of results have you got from so far? You're the Youth Connect Program Coordinator. Is that the correct title I've got there?
Yeah. The main, other than obviously building relationships, making friends, that sort of social connection with other people in their local area, one of the other main outcomes we've seen is an increase in independence. So some of the young people I've worked with so far have gone to groups and activities on their own for the first time, things like catching public transport on their own for the first time, all sorts of things revolving around independence, also social skill development, so having things as well to talk about, like developing your interests and practical skills then has a roll-on effect in terms of building social relationships and being able to sort of communicate with other people about what you like and who you are as a person, and obviously that makes things easier to make friends. There's other outcomes that are sort of were less expected, like the ease of transition from school to adult life. I'd never really worked in the sector, and I didn't realise that that was something that was quite difficult for a lot of young people. But we're finding that the more connections people have outside of school in those teenage years, then there's sort of relationships that follow on into adulthood. So that transition is eased. Another outcome would be the opportunity to contribute more and higher expectations, perhaps, through volunteering and all sorts of things, really, whatever we get involved in.
I think the important thing around that is that sort of valued role that I touched on as well, so that the community has higher expectations of the person with disability, doesn't become that or carry on a sort of eternal child type mentality. There is standard expectations of operating in a certain way in a certain environment, but also the individual and their own family in some cases has higher expectations or learns higher expectations for them as they see that they can do more and more as well.
Which is a very positive kind of outcome. I'm guessing for you as an organisation, it's quite labour intensive. Is that just what is required to make it work? Is that you as an organisation requires a lot of your human hours, I imagine, to support that. At what point is that a problem? That was my first part of my question. The second one is well, what point do you start to detach away from that program and to really, I guess, make it a lot more independent for those people who are involved?
I'll start the first bit and then Jessica answers the bit, which is, I think it is labour intensive. There is no question. All of the types of programs we work with, we're working with one staff member and one individual. So there is no question that is labour intensive and it's resource intensive to begin with. But we would argue, and we do argue, that if you front end it with being resource intensive there, you can have many less resources as you go on and the people's lives change, and not just resources from our organisational point of view, but the health system and the broader service system structure and that sort of thing is often less required if you get those structures in place and the support and the social aspect and the mental health and well-being and all the other associated things sorted out pretty early. So yeah, it is resource intensive, but the outcomes are much better and less resource intensive in the long run. Specifically how much work time we spend and how hard that is when we transition out, I'll let Jess speak about.
Yeah, I suppose it's different for everyone we work with. The program looks a lot different for everyone. Some people it's sort of three months, some people it's 12 months. Really depends on how much support they need and want as well, and also what those goals were in the first place. So we call it phasing out when we stop working with somebody. So when they feel confident enough to be attending something on their own or going to something on their own, it's that's sort of the first step. So either not going with them and meeting them there, or going with them and waiting outside and not actually attending whatever group or club function, whatever it might be. Then we sort of go every second time or maybe every third time. So it's sort of a really slow and gradual process, and it's something that is important to be not pressured. The young people can take their time with that, and it's really when they're ready. It's saying that sometimes there's things that come up which mean that we can't go, and that's another thing that happens just naturally. Young people sort of having to go alone for the first time and then finding that it was a positive experience, so it happening again and again and again. And then when they're sort of going on their own, it's just checking in on them, and eventually their files are closed when they're all happy attending independently.
I guess there's no roadmap or template for that. It's just how it evolves on an individual basis.
Exactly. And we're very clear with all of our members on all of our programs that it's a really no pressure thing. So it's when they're ready, when they're confident. In terms of the group or the club itself, there's no real way you can make that happen with those groups. That sort of social inclusion, has to happen naturally. So it's not measured by that. It's really just when that young person is confident and happy to be going alone.
Yeah.
The rest of it rolls on from there.
Great stuff. Yeah, and there'll be more information about it on this episode. But what do you see for the future of something like Youth Connect? I imagine you could go forever, for the next 100 years, doing Youth Connect. So, what do you think for the reasonably short term or long term future for something like Youth Connect?
Well, I was thinking that if we worked for 100 years, we'd be out of the job well before that. The idea is that, as Paul said, it's reducing the dependence on services in the future. So the more skills and independence young people are building now, the less they're going to require from other service providers, from government in the future. Also, it's about breaking that cycle in the mainstream community, so having young people with disabilities accurately represented in mainstream community groups, and so that it's sort of a generational shift, so it's something that's expected. These are big goals, and but that's certainly what we hope to contribute towards, definitely.
Yeah, and Paul, with all the sort of legacy, on the same thing, the sort of legacy you expect from this kind of program?
Yeah, it's really, I think Jess, to a degree, covered my main area, which was it's certainly about individuals and the individuals we're dealing with right now, but we've also got a much bigger picture in mind, which is simply to say that there is a point in time, and it may be down the track, many, many years down the track, where there isn't a need or even a talk about inclusion, just because it happens naturally and the community is made up of all people, and we value diversity in such a way that it isn't even a question. So certainly that's a long-term goal. But in the short term, we've got a long waiting list. The Youth Connect project at the moment is just a pilot project. It's only been funded for 2 years. We've got to prove our case locally that there is a need for it, that it's valued, and that we're really achieving some good outcomes, and use that as a starting point, because it's pretty hard to do if locally it's not valued. So we're proving that and proving our case, and we'll go from there with everything else.
Brilliant, and I wish you so much good luck with it, because it's a fabulous program. There'll be more information in this episode, like I say, but I might just draw it to a conclusion there. And I feel a bit guilty because it doesn't do justice to the full work of not only Youth Connect but Inclusion WA. So I encourage people to have a look at your website as well, and have a dig around there to see the breadth of work that you guys get up to. But Paul, thank you very much. Jessica, thank you very much indeed. I managed to nail you down eventually. Hopefully the recordings worked fine this time, and we wish you all the best. And thank you very much for your cooperation with it.
Thanks, Peter.
No problem.